On today's show, 3 questions. Number 1, do we see a Trojan horse? Number 2, is our life better now than in 1776? And number 3, what does the NBA have to do with picking stocks?
Consult an advisor or conduct your own due diligence when making financial decisions. General principles discussed during this program do not constitute personal advice. This program is furnished by Dentist Advisors, a registered investment advisor.
Welcome to Dentist Money's 2 cents, where we help dentists navigate all the noise. My name is Jake.
It's Taylor.
And I'm Rabih.
What's up, guys? We are coming to you live, not really live, but this podcast will be released on Independence Day. I hope everybody is having an awesome holiday weekend. If you're taking time out of if you're stepping away from the barbecue or your round of golf or whatever you're doing to listen to this podcast, kudos to you. You are the true listeners, where you just had to get your 2 cents fix in, even over the holiday weekend. Taylor, Rabih, what's up, guys?
Happy birthday, America. I'm excited.
America.
I know. I'm stoked. We didn't plan this, guys. I don't know for the few of you that are watching on YouTube. Yeah. We're literally red, white, and blue, and there was no coordination behind this.
Truly wasn't. Kind of divine intervention. Happy coincidence, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Kind of cool. What are you guys doing this weekend? Fun plans for the holiday?
Well, most of our state is on fire. So it's been raining ash. Where I live, we've had it raining ash, multiple times the last several weeks. So we're definitely close to the fires here. And most of our entire county has banned fireworks. So unfortunately, it'll be a little bit of a subdued 250th, but we're still making the most of it. We're going to the reservoir. We're going to a water park, trampoline gyms. I mean, the kids are going to be in heaven.
Rabih, anything for you?
Yeah, just like Taylor said, there are more signs of fireworks prohibited than fireworks stalls, and that is depressing. But I'm planning on keeping the barbecue on for like 3 days, and we're just going to enjoy all the barbecue you can think of, except, corn dogs. I still hold on to the tradition of not having a corn dog yet.
Is that something we're not gonna break that trend this weekend? You're like, yeah, corn dogs, I'm not about it.
Well, it started as an inside joke, right? It's like when I became a U.S. citizen, it's like, you need to have a corn dog. Like, this is very American. And it gets delayed every single year that now my personality is the guy who hasn't had a corn dog. So I'm going to ride it. I'm going to live with it.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit. Taylor, this is a finance podcast. This is a finance adjacent question. I am curious. So here in Utah, we're really dry and we're scared about wildfires. That's why the fireworks have been prohibited here. Maybe happening in other states. I've been reading that there's been a huge heat wave across most of America this week. Anyway, my question, Taylor, what are these firework companies doing? Like, if they're, I see them all, like there's all these tents and firework things set up shop here in Utah with the firework ban. Like, are people buying fireworks and just like, we're going to set them off next week, maybe when the ban's not in place? Or are these like firework companies just losing a ton of money because of this? What do you think?
I would assume a mixture of both, right? I do have a friend, funny enough, that is a temporary firework distributor. So he has a full-time job and he lives in Florida, but every year he comes back to Utah, where he's originally from, just for the fireworks stands. And he's here for the month of July, and they try to make extra income selling fireworks. So it is, in most cases, a seasonal job, right? Yeah. I don't think this is the primary income source of any firework seller, right? But I'm sure, the actual firework producing companies are going to take a little bit of a hit. But
kind of crazy.
I don't know. You probably could tell us. Our
How many fireworks
companies,
do you think we're going to see, actually? Do you guys think, like, come Saturday or come this evening when this podcast is released, we're just going to see a lot of fireworks anyway?
Well, the cities are organizing in very designated areas run by the cities themselves, very contained fireworks show, right? But I don't think people can use fireworks in their backyards. I don't know, this is maybe be dark, but I'm not really worried about the gunpowder industry. They already had a lot of stuff to fire up this year around the world, so they're fine. They're fine.
Okay, let's dive into our topics here, guys. Is there anything else we want to say on the 4th of July? We might weave in some Independence Day themes, I think, through our topics here. Anything else before we get going on our topics? No?
Let's dive in.
Stoked to be here. This is going to be awesome. Rabih, let's start with you. Your question is, do we see a Trojan horse? What's going on there? Explain. What are we talking about?
Yes, nothing is more American than talking about the Federal Reserve on a Saturday morning. So,
love it.
this is the summer in the stock market. Usually July and August and September, like the markets are calm. Wall Street goes on vacations, and I see it every single year. Dentists should too. Like, go enjoy life. Let's not be
Yes.
worried about the markets. So it gets tougher on the news and the data that we collect. But there were two kind of data points that we received this week that kind of help hint at the future of monetary policy. The first one is that our new chair of the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh, was in Portugal this week, along on a panel with all the central bankers from around the world. You're talking Europe, you're talking Canada, you're talking UK, etc. And then they asked him a bunch of questions about where do you think expectations are going to be for interest rates. We did mention that the chair of the Federal Reserve, this new guy, does not want to hint to the markets at all, and they want the market to react itself for interest rates decision. So he said two things that were important. The first one said inflationary pressure is now lower than it was a couple of weeks ago, and that is a big hint for oil prices. We saw oil prices drop from the 90s levels to under 70. That was after the memorandum of understanding between the US and Iran. The Strait of Hormuz kind of opened back. Oil is flowing. That dropped oil prices. We still haven't seen it on the gas pumps, like personally as consumers, but for larger companies, this is less inflationary. Companies do not actually need to pass that cost down to consumers much longer. So in the grand scheme of things, that should be healthier for the economy. That should now change the perspective of the market from the current baseline of, oh, we expect the Federal Reserve to increase interest rates, to probably, maybe we increase interest rates, maybe we don't. Cuts are still off the table. But you guys have to remember something, that the whole Kevin Warsh thing was that Trump wanted to bring in a chair of the Federal Reserve that will cut interest rates for him. Like, this was why he tried to fire Lisa Cook. That's why he opened a lawsuit against Jerome Powell. And then the second question that they asked Kevin Warsh this week was related to the Fed independence. It was like, are you going to cut interest rates because the president asked you to? And his answer bluntly was, the Federal Reserve has maintained a policy of independence for the last 100 years, and we're not looking to change that. So did Kevin Warsh really just... now, once he's in the job, put aside the political talk and he's doing what the economic data is telling him, and he might be defying the president? And then in a couple months from now, we're going to have Trump versus Warsh on Twitter, just like we did Trump versus Powell on Twitter. Yes. It might be. It might look like that.
That's kind of punk rock. That's a little bit like, that's like American coded
it's
right
also
there.
Kind of what we want to happen, right? The whole point of this position is that it's not supposed to be influenced by politics.
100%.
Right?
Obviously.
It's supposed to be independent, right? So this is kind of a good thing, right? We want that to be the case.
100%. Which is why, like, I chose the question, are we seeing a Trojan horse? Because if I know that Kevin Warsh is going to be doing some changes, but the main point that is kind of defining this chairmanship is like whether this Federal Reserve is going to be independent and not. And if he was, being very mellow and political and diplomatic until he was nominated, and now he's being strict following the code and the rules of the Federal Reserve, then it could have been like a Trojan horse. He just got in, and he's going to be another Powell. And markets love Powell. We had the best market performance under Powell. So that is not necessarily a bad thing. We saw long-term interest rates, like the 10-year interest rate, drop down in an expression of, oh, uncertainty is lowering. This guy really wants Fed independence. But we also got other data points that happened. On one side, inflation expectations are going to get lowered because oil is down. But also, we don't want an overheating economy. And the way you measure an overheating economy is by the jobs available in the market. How many jobs were created? Is the unemployment rate chronically low, etc.? And we got this data this morning, hence why if you look at indices this morning, they are up. And what we got is that the U.S. economy added 57,000 jobs in June 2026, well below a downwardly revised 129,000 jobs in May, and a forecast of 110. So we were forecasting 110,000 new jobs in the economy to be created in the economy in June. Almost half of them only showed up. The fact that the job market isn't lacking labor and it's not expanding without ample supply of labor, which is inflationary, is good news. I know in an economic sense, we're creating less jobs, this is bad for the economy. But in this day and time, where inflation is, creating less job and cooling off slightly is actually good for stock prices and for bond yields to go down. So this is what we saw. And with that, with the speech from Powell yesterday, not Powell, Walsh yesterday, with lower job numbers kind of this morning, the expectations are that when the Fed meets at the end of this month, July 29th, there's an 82% chance that we stay where we are. And there's a 17 or 13% chance that they increase interest rates by 1 basis point, or a quarter of a basis point. And if we go until the end of the year, the expectation is that there's still a 75% chance that interest rates are going to be higher in December and 25% chance that they're not going to change. So this is where we stand economically. Other than that, enjoy your vacation. Like, this is all that happened in the market.
Well, I think that's an important thing to highlight here, though, Rabih, is I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of different dentists over the last several months, and they've been waiting for this new chair to be put in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thought has been, well, these interest rates are going to come down. So I don't need a refinance right now, even though it makes sense because the better rates are around the corner, right? And by all accounts, it sounds like that you can't have that expectation, right? We can't expect just because Trump wants these rates to go down doesn't mean they're going to, right?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion, which is just that, my opinion, I cannot predict the future, but I would be pretty stunned, I think, if we got lowered rates over the next 6, 9, 12 months. Like, I think we're at least going to stay where we're at, or maybe even hike rates a little bit, would be my guess. Again, it's just a guess, but yeah, that's where I stand, which is, and again, to your point, Taylor, of the dentists who are listening are like, hey, what do I do with my loans, whether that's, mortgage or student loans or things there? What's a trickle down effect? I think this applies a lot to maybe student loan borrowers. If you're thinking about rates there, like if you are wanting or looking to refinance loans with, Trump's big, beautiful bill. It's July now, actually. And so all of that stuff is kind of coming to fruition now with Trump's new RAP plan and things like that. There's a lot of people looking to refinance their student loans. On the student loan refinancing point, I just wanted to get to this, which is you can always refinance, lock in your payment, stop interest from accruing on your loans. And if we do get lower rates a year from now, you can always refinance again, right? That's kind of the nice thing about student loan refinancing kind of area, which is super competitive. There's no closing costs or usually fees associated with refinancing. Like, you can refinance as many times as you want over the next short term, if you think that rates are going to go down, but it still might be worth it to lock in right now. Anyway, that's just kind of like a little financial planning corner there for student loans. Just a comment that I wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, 100%. So the politicians can say all they want. What matters at the end of the day is the economic data. Europe increased interest rates. Actually, they already did it when the Iran thing happened. Canada would have increased interest rates had the impact of the US tariffs not been too hard on them. Japan is already increasing interest rates. Then how would you expect the US in a globalized economy where money flowing freely to go against the stream? So the data talks at the end of the day. And until we move to a new economic equilibrium, I don't think we're seeing rates lower.
I agree. Okay, thanks, Rabih. Before I move on, this just popped in my head, and this is kind of our holiday episode, and so I don't care. I'm in charge here, and I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and we have to go with it. Where does the 4th of July rank on holidays, like the holiday list, throughout the year?
Third.
Okay, give us your top 5, Taylor, if you have it on top of mind.
Number 1 is Christmas. Again,
is that a debate? Can we debate that? Is Christmas everyone's number 1, or is there even a debate for the top
some
spot?
Some people like to be contrarian, and they like to be like, oh, Christmas isn't that great, and they're just haters, and they're wrong. So Christmas
Rabih,
is
you
the best
agree? Are we
holiday.
Christmas number 1? Are we across the board Christmas number 1?
I'm tired. I'm lost between choosing Thanksgiving or Christmas at the top, because I like to do the turkey every year. But I'll go with you not to disappoint and ruin Taylor's weekend. I'll say Christmas number 1, Thanksgiving number 2.
Okay, Taylor, what's number 2?
See, I'm live in a house where Christmas starts November 1st, takes a 2-day break, and then goes through December 31st. So I love Christmas. Christmas music starts, Hallmark movies to come on, love it. Okay. My second favorite is Halloween, which again, it's more of like the fall. Right? I don't necessarily love the obsession with horror and scary things. I actually hate that. Right? But the kids' Halloween and the pumpkin patches and the corn mazes and the fall treats, like all of that It's a phenomenal time of year.
I was going to say, I have 4-year-old boys, and I actually think their favorite holiday as of now is Halloween. It is not Christmas, mainly because they're like, it is checking all the boxes for them where they get to dress up in a costume, which they love, right? Or like a Transformer costume, a Spider-Man costume, whatever. They like look forward to that for months. There's like, they get to go get candy from people, which is like their favorite thing. I think they'd rather like candy than toys at this point in their life. So they get candy from people. They actually kind of like everyone's decorations and things. And we walk around the neighborhood and see people's skeletons and spiders. Anyway, I think my kid's favorite holiday is Halloween.
See,
Rabih, would you
this
put
is-
Halloween too?
Halloween is not in my top.
Okay, so
3 or
your 2
5.
is Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Halloween.
See, Halloween is at a surge. There is a contingent, I think, for people. Robbie's Thanksgiving being the best holiday is not a lot of people share that. But if anybody were to replace Christmas, there is a contingent of the Halloween truthers out there.
Kind of fun.
But it's just vehemently not true. But, these are opinions. And
So
my
your
opinion's right.
Christmas, Halloween,
Christmas,
4th of July,
Halloween,
Independence Day.
4th of July, right? And 4th of July, it's just vibes are high. Summer's out.
It's the summer part of it.
Barbecue, pools, warm weather. Like, it's amazing.
The
Fireworks.
fireworks.
Who
You can
doesn't
go
love
golfing.
fireworks?
You can play basketball, like all that cornhole in your backyard, all the outdoor activities. It's kind of nice. Usually have an extended weekend, like we're having this time. So Rabih, what's your top 3 if you had to choose?
I think I would put 4th of July as my 3rd, but I have to give an honorable mention for MLK Junior Day. Not for any reason, but because sometimes it lands on my birthday and I get, a couple days
Kinda
off.
nice.
Not for any other patriotic reason other than just it lands on my birthday.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
It is, I will say, it's just nice to have a couple days in January and February where you're in the winter slog. It's nice to have a couple days off. So I like
Labor Day is kind of great. Honorable mention there. If we're counting that, I don't know if it's like a holiday, but it's a great to get a long weekend, like kind of the back half of summer. Same with Memorial Day, right? Kind of the starting out summer.
See, I'm Christmas, Halloween, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, birthdays. That's how it goes.
All right. That's fair.
MLK isn't on your list? Come on.
I'm actually a
Robbie's-
Thanksgiving hater. I think I've talked about it on this podcast, unfortunately. Not a big
Hater.
Thanksgiving
You
guy.
hate it. You hate it.
Oh, I don't hate anything, as my mom would say and repeatedly tell me as I was growing up. We don't hate anything. So that always plays in my mind whenever the hate word comes out. But I just don't like the food. And so it's like, I feel like if you're not a turkey guy, you're not like a stuffing guy. Like, I actually prefer, for counting holidays, if we think, is a Super Bowl a holiday? I would
I think
prefer
it is.
Super Bowl Sunday to Thanksgiving.
This year it's coming out on, is it, I always get these
Valentine's?
mixed. It's President's Day? Is President's Day February or Martin Luther King?
I don't know. Is it
President's
Valentine's
Day
Day?
is February.
President's Day. So it's on President's Day weekend.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have the Super Bowl on Friday this year or something like that. Maybe, no, sorry, Sunday.
It's always
And then we have Monday off. So it's going to be
kind of
phenomenal.
nice.
It's gonna be
I
so
just
nice.
I would prefer like this food spread of like wings and finger foods and burgers and things like that to like a Thanksgiving turkey. Is kind of where I land.
Yeah, that's falling on deaf ears. Robbie and I are big turkey guys.
Yeah, that's
so-
fine. That's fine. Maybe the listeners are shouting too as they're listening to this. Okay, let's move on to our other topic here. We're done with our interlude. Taylor, we're asking the question, is our life better now than it was we're using 1776 in honor of America's 250th birthday here.
Yeah, and I am excited to do this topic. I know it's something near and dear to all of our hearts, and I know Jake specifically gets a little riled up when we talk about this. But
Okay.
if I were to ask you, Jake, when you talk to people and clients in general about today, do they usually have an optimistic or a pessimistic view of today?
I'm like, as a whole, I think pretty pessimistic, right? I think this is the ironic thing, which we can talk about this in the nuance here. I actually think most people, if you say, how do you feel like your life is going? Like personally, I think a lot of people are like, I think my life's okay. Like it's pretty good. Like I'm doing the things I want. But if you ask them, how are we doing like as a whole, like as a civilization, as an economy, as a country, as a world, whatever that may be, people are like, oh, never been worse.
The
we are
world has
things.
never been worse.
things are not
never
going well.
scary or like,
Yes.
There is a general, very pessimistic view of the future, where we're at. It's always like a romanticizing of the past and how much better things were decades ago and how today is worse off. It is a very, very common thread, right? For the most part, when I talk to clients, that's what I see across the board. It's very, very pessimistic. right? And I just wanted to share some fun data about how objectively that is so untrue, right?
Let's do it. Yeah.
So I want to talk about how today is so much better than the past. So
Let's give a contrarian, optimistic take here.
because we're on the 4th of July when this is coming out and we're listening, we're using 1776 data here, right? So I want to start just with life expectancy. So I can't ask you guys these questions because you all have heard these answers recently, but average life expectancy around 1776 was between 35 and 38, right?
That's wild.
So I am 33, turning 34 in August. I'd have 1 year left to live, and that would be it. I'd be done.
What is it today? Do you have the today numbers? What's life expectancy today?
Today's life expectancy is 74. In the U.S., that is 78, right?
A little lower than I thought.
So we basically have doubled life expectancy as a whole across the globe, right? In the last 250 years, which it's not a long time if you look at human history, right? 250 years is actually really, really short. Our country is very, very young relative to other countries around the world. In addition to that, just some fun numbers about that. In pre-colonial America, the violent death rate was 60%. So you had over a 50% chance of dying violently, right? More often than not, it was due to wars. And, we know from the beloved musical Hamilton that Rabih refuses to watch, that if you were mad at someone, you could just duel them and shoot them.
Yeah,
right?
I've watched Westerns. People out there, it's the Wild West. We're just going around, you're riding your horse and you're shooting people you don't like. Yeah.
Yeah. Another one on that, infant mortality rates. So about 43% of children died before the age of 5.
Amazing. It's
Today,
insane.
that's 0.7%.
It's crazy.
Right? Pretty good numbers there.
What's nuts there too is I think we've seen a huge uptick just since like 1900, like not even going back to, a couple hundred years ago, like really since like the past 100, 150 years has been, like you can kind of expect half of your kids born to you to die, pretty early on in life. It's pretty sobering, kind of horrific. And that was like the fact for a lot of human history. And now we've largely eradicated most of that in our society, thanks to modern medicine. Kind of crazy.
At founding of the U.S., between 85 and 92% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty, right? Now, extreme poverty is defined as living off of $1.90 to $2.15 per day. So basically living off of, adjusted for inflation, $2 a day, right? Today, that number is 9%. 9% of the world lives in extreme poverty. Still way too high. But if you compare that to 90% pre-US to today, 9%, as a world, we have gotten a lot better at feeding people, right? Home size, right? At the American Revolution, average home size was 830 square feet. And the average household size was 5.5 people.
Whoa.
Still bigger than like some people living in downtown Manhattan. They may be like, hey, 100 square feet, that's huge.
Yeah. I don't know if they have 5.5 people in that, but yeah, average home size, 830, 150. To your point here, Jake, if we just want to go back less than 100 years ago, if we go to the end of World War II, the average home size was 797 square feet. So actually less, right?
Yeah.
Just
we
under
see a lot of like housing growth over that time period.
And the average household size was 3.5 people, right? So a little bit better on a square foot ratio, but still average home size was only 800 feet at World War II. Today, any guesses? We'll give Rabih. Any guesses is the average home size today?
400, 500?
I'd say 1,700 square feet.
1,700.
2,400 square feet, right? And average household size is 2.5.
2,400 square feet being the average that's a bit surprising to me.
It's not surprising to me, but it's a
decent sized home.
It's a decent sized home, and that's the whole point. Is like our homes have gotten bigger. We've become more affluent. The middle class has grown significantly, right? Pre-US, right? Pre-1776, it really was like some really elite, wealthy people and everybody else living in desperate poverty, right? There has been a very, very distinct growth of the middle class due to the US. right? And everything that has come with that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure people listen. I mean, there's always going to be class tiers, right? There's maybe some people listening to this thinking, oh, there's still like the top 1% who are living super lavishly. And then there's me all the way down here. Maybe that doesn't apply to a lot of our dentist listeners. But still, like the thing to keep in mind is just as a whole, right? Our bottom 10 or 15% today, like living standards wise, are probably living better than the kings did hundreds of years ago, right? Just all the access and things they have to. Just the ability to go to a grocery store and to literally select whatever food you want to buy is, well, I think people 300 years ago would be like, that's a miracle. What the heck? Pretty nuts.
So a couple other quick fun hitters, we'll do where people lived. 96% of Americans lived on farms in 1776. And today, roughly 83% of Americans live in urban areas, right? So complete switch on that front. Bathing. Most colonists took only a few baths a year. Back then, there was a belief that if you were completely immersed in water, it opened your skin pores and you allowed disease to enter.
I think about this often. Did they just stink back in the day and they were so used to it that no one cared?
Yes. Yes, they did. Right.
Crazy.
Travel. A trip from Boston to Philadelphia, about 300 miles, took 4 to 5 days by horse. So today that's an hour or 6-hour drive, an hour flight. Most of the people at that time never left their county. Their entire lives, they lived in one county.
Kind of electric. Yeah.
Clothing. Most people owned only a few garments. A working class colonial woman would have owned 2 to 3 dresses their entire life. Today, the average American buys 65 new items of clothing per year.
Wow.
I don't know who's doing that. That seems crazy. I still have shirts from high school, so I don't know who's buying 65 items of clothing a year. That's not true. Now that I have kids, that is, I definitely do that for my children. Yeah. So objectively, if you want to look at life expectancy, affluence, crime, we are better today than we ever have been, right? And despite this, unfortunately, there's this sentiment out there that things are bad and they've never been worse and they've never been scarier, and we shouldn't be optimistic and we should, be fearful when it comes to the market and whatever it may be. But I don't know about you guys. I think this has been a common thing across the board in the US is we've had a lot of fun with the World Cup and just having a lot of different countries and cultures and people come to the US and experience US culture. And I think everyone has seen the TikTok videos of Japanese people trying Texas barbecue for the first time, or going to Cheesecake Factory and being blown away at the portion size, or walking into a Walmart and just being astounded at the size of our milk cartons. And sometimes it's good to take a step back and just be grateful, right? Just be grateful that we live in a world where people don't stink, right? That we take showers for granted, that we are able to, have central heating and air conditioning and all of the little luxuries that literally less than 100 years ago seemed impossible.
Yeah. Now, I love that, Taylor. I don't know. Now, I don't know if again, complaining as a whole, as a human race, I don't know if that's some evolutionary thing where it's we bond a little bit, as people over complaining about things sometimes, and maybe being pessimistic about the future is our evolutionary way of saying we're trying to protect ourselves and shield ourselves and plan for the worst. We're just trying to kind of stay alive here. Maybe all of our complaining has something to do with that. But Morgan Housel has something he likes to talk about, which I like to quote frequently or talk about, which is he says you can gauge how good a society is by how trivial their complaints are, how good they're doing. It's we always are going to complain about something. And so if we can kind of just say how trivial are our complaints, if they're on the really trivial end, that means we're probably doing pretty good as a society as a whole. And I just like to think about that. It's maybe we can't get rid of complaining, but we should take a step back and realize we got it pretty good. I would not want to go back and live in 1776 or probably 1800 or even 1900 for that matter. I'm perfectly okay living today.
Yeah. If when people ask me the question, if you could go back in time and visit a time, what would you? I wouldn't go back anywhere that didn't have indoor plumbing.
Now, 1999, if you want to take me back to 1999, I might take you up on that. Seems like pretty peak, awesome time to be alive. Anyway, Rabih, any thoughts here?
No, and I know we're talking about this from the perspective of America, but if you're still the country where everyone wants to come to it, live in it, and work in it, then you don't have any right to complain. This is how I think
think
of
that's
it.
fair. I think that's fair. Okay, speaking of trivial things, do you want to talk about the NBA draft?
Yes, I do.
A little bit here. Now, I don't know what percentage of our listenership is like, I hate sports and I don't pay attention to the NBA, and why are we going to talk about the NBA draft here? If that is you, hang with us a little bit here. We're going to try and wrap around the NBA draft, what it has to do with stock picking and making financial decisions. So, backstory, the NBA draft is top of mind for a lot of us here at Dennis Advisors, mainly because we live in Utah, if you don't know already. There's a professional basketball team called the Utah Jazz here that is quite beloved. We just love the Jazz. In this most recent draft, NBA draft, which happened I think just a week ago, a week and a half ago, the Utah Jazz had the number 2 pick in the NBA draft, which is kind of rare to have a pick that high. We have lost purposefully for years to try and get this number 2 pick. It's been miserable. But we have the draft. We selected a guy named Darren Peterson. If you're kind of into the space, he's from Ohio, went to Kansas. Anyway, we hope he's going to be pretty awesome. Taylor, Darren Peterson, thoughts? Do you love him? Hate him?
I'm ecstatic. This guy is going to be electric, and he's the one I wanted, months and months ago. And the fact that he fell into our laps at 2 feels like an incredible blessing. Those are my thoughts.
Agreed. Come on, Darren. If Darren Peterson is listening to this, which he might be, we can't rule that out. We're rooting for you, Darren. Let's go. Take the Jazz to new heights. Anyway, the whole thing with the NBA draft is there's teams like the Utah Jazz who will lose on purpose. This is kind of like a strategy in sports. You will lose on purpose, often referred to as tanking. Or you will lose on purpose to try and get a good draft pick to hopefully draft a really good player that can turn your organization around. Right? That's kind of like the key strategy here. It's like, we're going to lose in the short term to hopefully get a Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa. He went number 1 in the draft to the Wizards. Try and get one of these guys to turn your franchise around. What's interesting, though, is like this, and this is kind of like the number 1 way to try and build a championship team, I would say. Right? Like in the NBA particularly. We could talk about the NFL or different sports. Like, it's really like we want to tank and try and get a player that can help us win. What's interesting is the hit rate or the success rate of these draft picks is kind of small and kind of slim when you break it down. So we want to shout out Matt here. Matt is on vacation. We hope he's having a great time. But he did a lot of this research for us on NBA draft picks and how often they have success. So we're defining success here. I want to give the audience some numbers. Now we're defining success of like, okay, if the pick that you drafted, how often did they become an all-star? Right. So if you're an all-star in the NBA, it's like you're a top, 20 player essentially, top 22, 24 player in the league. Do they expand? I think there's 12 all-stars per conference is where we're at.
I think it's 24.
24, yes. Like a top, how often do these people like in a given year reach a top 24 level of NBA player? The number 1 pick in the NBA draft, and we are going back to, this is 1980. We're kind of doing our
we're doing 1980 to 2020. We are not doing 2021 or later, just because a lot of these players are still young and there's not good.
But we could talk about. There's actually some really good picks from 2020 on. There's Victor Wembanyama. Anyway, so yes, 1980, the number 1 pick became an all-star 75% of the time. That's actually higher than I expected. Pretty good hit rate there.
Yeah.
Number 2 pick in the draft. This is where the Utah Jazz were. Takes a pretty big dip, actually. It goes down to 40%. So the number 2 pick in the NBA draft only became an all-star 40% of the time over the past 40 years. Number 3 pick is 55%. The number 4 pick is 32%. The number 5 pick is 37%. All pretty similar.
Really, really kind of hard, like scary data for us as Jazz fans with the number 2 pick, because you see that and it's like number 1, 75% hit rate, number 2, 40%, and then number 3, 55% hit rate.
Historically speaking, you have a better chance of picking 3 than 2, which is interesting.
Yeah. Which, there's probably a lot of different reasons why that is, right? But I think that the biggest point here, if we want to compare this to the stock market, is the world kind of works in probabilities, right? Mm-hmm. There's no sure things out there, right? As much as we like to put narratives around things and, we talk about things and we plan for the future, most of the future is unknown, right? And most of the future, most of the decisions we make, we have to deal in what are the chances of this succeeding? And even with people who, our main goal is to play bad, get a high draft pick, on average, if you get a top 5 pick, you've only got a 48% chance of hitting with that pick.
Yeah, kind of crazy. And I think we can kind of paste this on to investment decisions and financial decisions in the sense that, like in these drafts, like the Utah Jazz and every other team in the league has a whole team of scouts, essentially, like who are watching these players for years. Or like their Jazz scouts have watched Aaron Peterson since he was like 13 years old and known who this kid is. And they watch him for years and they analyze tape and they watch all the prospects and they have all the data. They have a whole analytics department. They are probably introducing AI to some of their analytics and things that they are doing. They are doing everything they can to try and make this as scientific a process as possible of who's going to be the best pick for our team. And even with all of that data and all of that information and how smart these people are and how long they've been doing this, they still mess up and they pick players who aren't very good, who end up being busts, and it's still kind of a crapshoot in the end, which I think we can relate to, like kind of like stock picking in the stock market too, or in different investment decisions where we will be like, man, there are triple PhDs on Wall Street who've been doing this for 20 years and have all the data available to them, and this is their livelihood. And the data shows us that about 95% of professional like hedge funds and money managers underperformed the overall market over a 5-year period, right? Most of them still fell, even with all the newest technology and things available to them, which kind of just goes back in to make this full circle is we can't predict the future, unfortunately. Maybe we're getting there, Rabih. I don't know if you can tell us we're going to have some AI application that's going to correctly predict the future. Maybe we get there in the next couple of years. Who knows? But as of now, I still think we're in the dark of what's going to happen in the future, which makes making financial decisions and a lot of other decisions in our life really hard to do. Other thoughts here, guys? Things that you wanted to touch on with this point?
Taylor?
I want to hear from Rabih.
Actually, I really love that analogy, Jake, about, the individual basketball players being like an individual stock. You could do all the research, but you will not know which player is going to be the star. But the analogy can also be extended, is that NBA players, it might be a hot take, you might feel otherwise, you guys, but every new generation is able to break new records. Records that were set in the 80s were broken in the 90s and then broken in the 2000s and 2010s and 2020s. The way the athletes train, the way they do recovery, the way they approach the game plan has changed. And with that, they were doing the whole NBA player cohort as a whole was able to achieve new records that were not thought possible before that. And this same thing exactly happens with stocks. You might not know which stock is going to push the envelope and change our world, but you can be fairly certain that when you are investing in all stocks at the same time, the winner is included and the market will be making new highs going forward. Maybe you were saying the 1999s were a golden age for you. You'd go back to there, but that was a high in the market. And after that, I was like thinking, right before the dot-com, really, Jake? So the dot-com bubble crashed, right? But the market as a whole later on recovered, crashed in 2008, and then later on recovered. So any individual player might not be the best player of all time for too long, but the cohort as itself, the NBA players are better athletes and on average, just like the market on average will make new highs as we proceed with time and new inputs are added.
I like that. I think I was more thinking 1999 of this like, hey, we had a Nintendo back in the day and that was kind of the extent of technology. And I feel like that was the sweet spot, like Nintendo is the most advanced thing that we had. It was probably a great place to be. I like that. The cool thing about the stock market and investing is you're not limited to one pick, right? The Jazz had one pick in the draft and one player, and they had to go all in on that one pick. In the stock market, you can essentially say, can I just like take every first rounder, all 30 picks that are going to be in this draft? And I know that a couple of them are going to hit and be really good NBA players. They'll be really good in my portfolio, and that can drive your returns. So that's really nice. Again, another kind of analogy we can make here too of like, okay, well, the future's uncertain. We do not know how to predict it. How do we ever make decisions then about what's going to happen? Well, I think we can just focus on process, right? And like really they take out like, let's be less concerned about the result and more concerned with is our process good? Were the odds in our favor? Could we survive maybe being wrong on this thing, right? Like the new associate that you may want to hire or practice might look perfect on paper, but you don't quite know how it's going to turn out or how their personalities are going to mesh, right? The new location might seem obvious on paper, but there's always a bit of a risk doing it, right? A new piece of technology, marketing strategy, we can apply this to your practices too. It's always going to be a little bit uncertain, but if we can just kind of rely on some historical data, talk through every scenario, make sure that our process is good in making this decision, and then we can kind of live with whatever outcome comes of it. I think is kind of the financial planning parallel here. Anything else, Taylor, to add before we...
Well, I'm just glad that we don't have to have our investments act like the NBA, where there is only one champion every year, right?
Yeah, that's nice too.
Fortunate for us, we can, as Rabih mentioned, we don't have to bet on any one player, 1 out of 30. We can bet on all 30 of them in our portfolios, right? We get the control, we get to decide, and we can take the guesswork out of it, right? And just let the market do its job, right? Which is not possible in some of these other, contrived arenas in life, right?
Yep.
But in your life, you can do that, right? And that's what we try to do here at Dentist Advisors, right? Rabih is a genius, and we love hearing his insights every week. But I don't want Rabih guessing the future for me. I don't want him picking stocks. I don't want him doing things in my portfolio, in my accounts with my retirement, because that's a big old gamble, right? And the nice thing is we don't have to.
Love it. Okay, guys, I think we're coming up on time here. Any predictions on how far the U.S. soccer team's going to go in the World Cup? If you had a... Again, we're talking about trying to predict the future here in this, in this area, but where do you think they end up?
If they make it to past this quarterfinals, I'll be more than delighted.
Yeah, I don't think they made it past. They play Belgium on Monday, I think is when they play, and they've never made it past the round of 16 since 2002, I think was the last time.
And they don't have their top goal scorer because he got a red card. So it's not looking very good, but hey, we're in the U.S. It's around the 4th of July. Why not?
It would be really cool. I think this team has
not?
been really fun. It's kind of fun that this World Cup thing is aligning with the 4th of July, right? And it's kind of been like a, hurrah, America. And it's fun. It's fun that like across the country have everyone, I think mostly everyone cheering for, the same team is a cool thing. Okay, guys. Thank you all for listening. I think we're going to end here. Any final notes or comments? Yeah, you guys want to send out to the listeners?
Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America. USA.
Hopefully you enjoyed your weekend. We will be back next week on the same podcast feed. Thank you all for listening. Talk to you later.